Welcome to the Hux Legacy Show with Randy Hux.
If you've ever wondered how annuities actually work, this special edition episode is for you.
I want to thank you so much for joining. My name is Randy Hux. I'm the owner of Hux Capital Management. We have a fantastic group of people, which includes about 58 different people that we work with. And we're honored to have you on the call, and certainly look forward to helping you in any way we can. So I want to start out by talking a little bit about why I got in this industry so that you understand why I sit here in front of you today. There was a point where I was an actual client and I sat where you are, and I can remember always feeling confused. Like there was never any clarity when I talked to people. And it was very frustrating for me because I wanted to understand it. And the reason I started out in the industry is because I had such bad advice. I had bad experience. I had worked with some of the biggest firms out there, had my money with them, and none of the advice ever made sense to me. And I was trying to achieve a dream. See, let me back up just a second. When I graduated from college in '94 from Texas A&M University, I had a degree in finance and in accounting. I then became a CPA, and I worked as a CPA at Ernst & Young. And it didn't last long, 2 or 3 years, because I didn't enjoy it. And I wanted to do something I enjoyed. So I changed industries. I went into the medical field, and then I went into the biotech field, very, very similar. And I had been very successful there. So I was able to hire some people to manage my money. I always wanted to become a head baseball coach in college. That was my goal. I wanted to get out of, quote, the business world, and I wanted to become a head baseball coach in college. So I worked really hard at that. And eventually I left all of the lucrative positions that I had and the money that I had. And I had all my money invested with some of these firms that I mentioned to you earlier. And I sat right there in your shoes and I heard the same thing that you've heard before. And none of it made sense. And so I heard bad things about annuities. Very few people said anything good about them. I had bad investment advice. I had bad guidance in terms of like how to make sure that I protect some of my money. And so all the while I'm trying to live this dream, and you see this picture of me, this is when I was coaching in college, and I wasn't quite yet a head baseball coach, but I was heading that direction. And then guess what happened? I had 2001 hit me and I barely hung in there. And then in 2008, it wiped me out because I was not only living off of what I had made, but I was hoping that my advisors would be able to replenish that money with their investments and their strategies and ideas, which really come to find out they weren't really doing much. They were buying mutual funds. They're pretty basic, pretty standard. So I lost my dream. And I decided that what I would do is I would find a way to be able to help others so that they did not have to let go of their dreams and all the things that they wanted to do with their pile of money. And so if you're listening to this today and you're concerned about the markets and the volatility and so on and so forth, you should be. I mean, you should be. It's going to happen forever, right? You should never have all your eggs in one basket, right? But it's like, where do I put all of my eggs? So I'm glad you're here because, I know exactly how you feel sitting there and listening. And I hope that you'll just absorb what I'm saying because I'm going to teach it to you in a very simple way and in a way that is relevant, makes sense, and that hopefully is beneficial to you, okay? It'll be very transparent. I love teaching. I love educating, and that's why I do what I do. I had a client within the first 2 years, and she asked me when I thought that she could retire. And I said, well, let me see all your stuff. And I looked through all her stuff. I was still learning as an advisor. I'd only had 2 years under my belt. Now I have 17 years under my belt and a full staff of people. And I said, well, let me look at your stuff. I evaluated it. I asked some other colleagues that knew more about planning and stuff than I did. And when I put it all together, I realized, well, this lady can retire today and she doesn't know it. So when I presented it to her name was Sherry. She was 67 years old. And when I presented it to Sherry and I said, Sherry, I have some great news for you. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but you can actually retire today. And she said, what? She said, how do you know that? And I showed it all to her. I laid it all out for her. And I showed her the guarantees that were involved in all that. And she said, oh my gosh, this is fantastic news. I can't wait to tell my husband tonight. So I thought to myself, wow, that felt pretty good. And what I realized is that, hey, I'm still a coach. I'm still teaching and helping people. I'm giving people direction. It's just that I'm now a financial coach. I'm a retirement coach, and I can help people retire with a freedom And I love that, man. I love doing it. So that's what got me to this point, was getting bad advice from others and not having protection built into my portfolios. And that cost me my dream. But, everything happens for a reason. And now I'm back into this, and I really enjoy making sure that you actually going to be able to learn something, and then hopefully you'll seek out someone, whether it's us or not. It's okay. I just want you to be aware of what the truth is about annuities. And if we can help you, we'd like to. Okay. There's a little button here on the screen. You can see it where it says book an appointment. If you want to book an appointment with us or with me, just go ahead and type your name and phone number in there and all the stuff that it asks for. My calendar will pop up, and you can pick a time when you'd like to book an appointment. And that would be great, because I love one-on-one appointments. These presentations are always very general in nature, but when we have those one-on-one appointments, I can really drill down for you and hopefully enlighten you on what you have and what you could have and what the differences are and how we may or may not be able to help you. And trust me, if we can't help you, if I can't help you, if our staff can't help you, I'll be the first one to tell you that your plan works and it's a good one. Okay. Anyway, I want you guys also to know that the biggest thing in my life is my family. My family is the most important thing to me in my life. These are all of our children. This is my beautiful wife, Tina, in the middle. And those are our children on either side of us. They're between 21 and 25 right now, and they're absolutely wonderful, wonderful people. And this is one of our annual pictures. But, they mean everything to me. And I sincerely want you to know that, because I truly, I love my family. I mean, they're my why. They're my why I do everything in life. So I want to leave them with a legacy, hopefully one where they're very proud of their father. Okay. So anyway, that's enough about me. Let me help you out now. Let's talk about the truth about annuities, and let's just go ahead and dive into it, because I want to ask you a question, like what is it that defines a successful retirement plan? In your opinion, in your thought, really, what are the common elements that make your retirement plan successful? I mean, the hallmarks of a successful plan are really safety that's built within your portfolio, assets that are protected. I know the screen says protected. You're thinking protected. What does that mean? You need to have some assets that are protected from market losses. Yes, that's annuities. Some annuities can protect you from market losses. We're going to get into that in a moment. Other annuities cannot protect you from market losses. So you need to understand the difference in these. And that's what I'm going to teach you tonight. Okay. They can also provide you, a successful retirement plan can also provide you with income for the rest of your life, guaranteed income for the rest of your life and your spouse's life. Okay. Very important to understand that, because we're going to talk about something here called longevity in a moment, and the importance of being able to make sure that you don't outlive your money. So those are the two main things. The two hallmarks of a successful retirement plan is having some protection from market loss and making sure that you have some guaranteed income for the rest of you and your spouse's life. And this is where annuities come into play. Now, you may ask, historically, how did all this come to be, right? Well, they started with pensions. So we had these defined benefit plans. They were defined. You worked for a company for 30, 40 years, right? You retired. You got the gold watch. You get the pension that lasts the rest of your life and hopefully the rest of your wife's life, right? That's how it used to be. But what's happened is, and it gave you some safety and income. Everybody looked forward to that back in the old days. And pensions really were an important reward for public service, but they became popular in the 1800s. And so, that's kind of how all this started, right? But then in the mid 1980s came defined contribution plans, okay, plans, IRAs, all the things that you guys listening probably have, right? And they started to replace these old defined pension plans that these companies would give you. There's very few pension plans out there anymore, right? So there are some good things in that. The good things are that you have more control over how your money is invested, whereas in the pension funds, you had no idea how those monies were invested. You were just going to pick up your check at the end of your time for the rest of your life. But that's exactly why they did away with that. They shifted the risk from themselves to companies, and they shifted that to you, the individual. So now you're responsible for trying to figure out how to manage your risk and your investments. And oftentimes it's very difficult unless you're working with a trained professional or an investment advisor. It can be very difficult to do. In these defined contribution plans, they help to give these workers, more control over their retirement savings, but also the freedom to move between jobs. So what I mean in the IRA, the 4K, the Roth accounts, like you can take those from one job to another. And most of you people listening know this already, but I want to make sure that you understand that couldn't happen with pensions in the old days. If you were with a company for 5 or 10 years and you left and you went to another company, you lost that pension. You didn't get that pension. And that was primarily how those worked. But now, whatever you build up in your 4K, your Roth 4K, your IRA accounts, all of those can be transferred and you get to keep all that. And so that is a benefit of the new way of retirement planning, if you will, or investing. So I mentioned to you earlier, there's longevity risk. And so really, what is longevity risk? And longevity risk is just the possibility that you could outlive your money or outlive all your assets or outlive your income, because retirement truly is all about income. Retirement is all about income, because one day when you leave this earth and you take your last breath, your assets are going to go to somebody else anyway, unless you pass them on before you die, right? So while you're alive, you know how much money you need typically to live the rest of your life. And so it's the income. I still want that consistent income that I had when I was working. So longevity risk really is the risk that you could outlive any of the income that you make, right? Why are we talking about this? Why is this such a big deal? Well, it's a big deal because if I live to 95 and my money only lasts till 85, I have a real problem. I have a 10-year gap. How do I fill that gap? And I think that's where really annuities come into play. Annuities can help to fill that gap because they have guarantees built in. So annuities can act as this pension substitute. Like I just said, they can help fill this gap. So understand that they were really created to help annuities address their number one concern, and that is making sure that you don't outlive your money. And you're like, well, how could that possibly be? Well, some of these products have what's called an income component, right? And they can actually provide you with income for the rest of your life. Now, I'm going to show those to you here in a minute, but I want you to understand how all of this stuff kind of fits together before I show you the actual differences between all the different types of annuities. But we have to make sure that if we live longer than what we expect that we're going to live, that we have enough income to cover all of our needs throughout our life. And that's how these products were designed. And so many people get it wrong. They misunderstand. They look at it as this should be the greatest investment of your life. Well, it should be the greatest investment that protects you in your life, because it's an insurance company, and insurance companies were designed to protect you and your assets, right? So really, what is an annuity? Of course, this is you, an owner, let's say, on the left, or some owners on the left, and there's an insurance company on the right, and there's a contractual agreement between you two, and you take some of your money and you give it to the insurance company, right? You exchange what's called a premium or your deposit, and whatever that amount might be, and then they give you guaranteed lifetime income, okay? Not all contracts give you guaranteed lifetime income. Not all of them do. And if they do give you guaranteed lifetime income, they are going to charge you for that. Now, the charge varies from insurance company to insurance company. I've seen the charge as low as 80 basis points, which is 0.8%. And I've seen the charge as high as 1.25% for some income products that guarantee you income for the rest of your life. So you kind of have that range. It's an important question for you to ask with anybody that you're working with. How much does that income rider cost me? Now, the insurance company gets that money. We, the advisors, do not get that money. So don't misunderstand that. That is not a fee that we charge, okay? The insurance companies pay us. That's how we make money. The insurance company pays us a commission. And those commissions are far less than what we would get paid if we just put your money in the stock market and we just started managing it for 10 or 12 years. We make much less money than we would if we were managing your money. So please understand that. The insurance companies pay us out of their general and administrative account, okay? But the fee that you're going to be charged if you have what's called an income rider or a guaranteed income, that fee is going to go to the insurance company and not us, the investment. So if you look at insurance companies and how they pull risk, right? Let's just go back to a very simple life insurance policy. And what these life insurance policies do is they help individuals to manage unexpected early death, right? Simple concept. We've all heard it, right? Hey, you invest and pay these premiums or what have you. And when you die, you're going to get X amount of dollars. Pretty good deal because you want to make sure that your family's taken care of and you want to make sure that people that you love are taken care of, right? So this is a strategy that you use. But what about for longevity and outliving money? How do annuities work in that capacity? Well, it helps them manage unexpected longer life expectancies. And that's what I've mentioned to you already 2 or 3 times. And that's the importance really of annuities, protection and giving you guaranteed income for life. So why should you buy an annuity? For the same reason you bought insurance, because you don't know how long you're going to live. You don't know when you're going to pass. And how in the world can they guarantee you income for the rest of your life, right? You might be thinking this, how in the world could they guarantee me income for the rest of my life when maybe my account balance has run out to zero? Well, let me tell you why. Because your money is pooled with a group of other people, right? And that all that money is pooled and they have actuaries inside these insurance companies. And these insurance companies know what the average life expectancy is. I believe it's 83 for a man and 87, 88 for a woman right now, but that changes every once in a while and it's getting higher and higher. And so as life expectancy changes, we know that there's going to be people that die a little bit earlier or sooner than others in that pool of people. Some people, I'm stating the obvious, right? Some people might buy one of these annuity products and 5 years later at 75 years old, maybe they're dead, and they pass that on. Maybe they live to be 95, but the average life expectancy is somewhere in the middle, say 85. Okay. So that's how they can do that because they know that some people are going to leave this earth earlier than others and they know what the average life expectancy is. So that's how they can guarantee you money or income for the rest of your life, right? Should be pretty simple to understand that. If not, by all means, schedule a meeting with me. I mean, that appointment button is still there and you can click on it. Even while I'm teaching you today, you can click on it and you can go right there and enter all your information, set an appointment. You'll get my calendar and I'll be glad to meet with you on a call. Okay. But that's how that typically works. We pull the money and it addresses longevity risk by giving you income for life. And that's how that works. So how do I select? How do I know? You keep talking about all these different annuities, Randy. How do I know to select which annuity and which annuity is right for me? Well, a lot of times you may not know that. And that's why you need the expertise of advisors, people that have been doing this for a long time, that are trustworthy, people that you know, that you like, that you trust. And that takes time, right? This is your hard-earned money. But there are things to know before you buy the annuity. And you definitely need to know these things, that there are different types of annuities. But not only that, but like investments, annuities need to invest your specific objectives, just like investments do. Your risk tolerances, right? You need to understand the risk and the rewards of the different types of annuities. And that's what I'm going to share with you here. So here's a list of the different types of annuities, right? This is a pretty basic list. Fixed payout, or what we call a SPIA, that's an acronym. That just don't make it complicated. It's very simple. It just is a fixed payout. So you invest X amount of dollars, whatever that dollar amount is. The insurance company goes to their table and they say, oh, you're 68 years old, you're 65 years old. Your payout rate for being a male or a female is XYZ, whatever that percentage is. And so they just take that number and they multiply it by the amount that you just deposited, and that's your payout amount, guaranteed for the rest of your life. Well, that's good, but here's the problem. If you die 2 years later, if you die 20 years later, guess who gets your account balance? Not you. The insurance company gets your account balance. I personally and professionally have never used this product. I've never seen a need for it. I've seen some people use it, and those are very, very specific cases because these are really high income payouts, but nobody really wants to give their money to an insurance company. They typically want to give it to their loved ones, right? So if you look at the next one, it's the fixed rate annuity. And that fixed rate annuity just is a substitute, a complete substitute for a CD. Matter of fact, I tell my clients all the time, like, why do you have CDs? Well, I want my money safe. Well, great. You can have your money even more safe if you're with an insurance company than if your money is with a bank, because insurance companies don't fail, but banks fail all the time. And we see it in the headlines all the time. But this is what fixed rate annuities do. They pay out a fixed rate, and it varies depending on the term of the contract. Just like with a CD. If you get a 1-year CD, you get a lower rate. If you get a 2-year CD, you get a higher rate. If you get a 3-year CD, you get a higher rate, and so on. Well, with these fixed rate annuities, it's the same thing. They usually come in 3, 4, and 5-year contracts, and they're always going to pay you more than what a bank pays you. Products that are at a bank are never going to pay you what you can earn through an independent licensed fiduciary or somebody that has access to these types of products. It's just not going to happen. They just can't compete with us. So keep that fixed rate annuity in mind. If you just want a fixed rate similar to a CD and you want to put it there for 3 years, you just want to earn your 4, 5, 6% right now is what they're paying. And you can do that. And at the end of the contract, you'll get not only your principal balance, but you'll get all the interest that you've made during that 3, 4, or 5-year period. And all that interest is compounded. Okay. So it's very powerful, really good product. Don't use it a ton, but I do use it occasionally. I probably use it on 5 to 10% of my clients, but we do use it. Most clients love the fact that you can't lose any money at it. You cannot lose any money at it, and you know that you're going to get that money back with that fixed rate. And they like certainty. Now, the variable annuity. This is number 3, the variable annuity. I'm going to go over this in more detail on my next slide, but this is an annuity where our industry and annuities really get a bad rap because they are often oversold or undersold or missold in a lot of different aspects. They're made to sound better than they are, and you really need to be careful with these variable annuities. If you have one, I want you to realize this one simple fact. There is no protection from market losses with a variable rate annuity. Now, I'm going to slide down to the fixed index annuity and talk about it a little bit because it's just opposite of the variable rate annuity. The fixed index annuity is 100% guaranteed to protect you from market losses. I know what you're thinking. How can they possibly guarantee that? Well, let me tell you, it's put in a written contract, okay? It's in a written contract, and it guarantees you, at minimum, your principal back. So there's a lot of different contracts, a lot of different designs. I work with a company called Annexus, in which we're the only one, we have access to what only 2% of any advisors in the country have access to. So there's some very unique products that are very stable and they're very good, but they're all protected 100% from market loss. We're going to go over that in a little bit too, because the variable annuity and the fixed index annuity are the 2 most commonly used products in retirement planning. Now, the registered link annuity provides you some downside protection, but it doesn't provide you 100%. Depending on the kind of contract that you get, you could have 10%, 20%, 30% downside protection. The QLAC is another product that really we don't need to elaborate on here because I really want to stay fixed on the variable annuities, and I want to get through this for you. Variable annuities. What are the features and benefits? Well, they can provide guaranteed income for life. So if you put $100,000 in, again, they go to that table, and whatever the highest watermark is on that account value, typically this is how they work. Whenever your account value goes from 100 to 120,000, even if it goes down to 80,000, your account balance, they'll look at that 120,000 and they'll pay you income based on that high watermark. But the bottom line is, if you go to get your money out, you're only going to get your $80,000 out. Okay. I don't like this strategy at all. I would like to, at least at this point in my life, at 62 years old, I'd like to know that I'm not going to lose any of my hard-earned money, right? So that's one thing. It can provide you income that's guaranteed for life, but the downside has absolutely zero protection. These products are usually, what they usually invest in is mutual funds. So everybody listening to this has probably had some experience with mutual funds. If you've had a 4K or an IRA, talk to an advisor that uses mutual funds. We do not, because they have a lot of cost in them, but they do not offer principal protection, and they're invested in mutual funds. So they're mutual fund based. They're 5 to 10 year contracts or surrender schedules. They have fees in them, mortality and expense fees. They have administrative fees. These are also hidden. They have investment fees that are hidden. They have rider fees. I told you about the rider fees, the income rider fees for getting guaranteed income. So typically when you add it all up, a typical variable annuity has between 1.8 and 4.25% in fees. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And guess what? Unlike in a fixed index annuity, you're actually going to pay this fee and the advisor is going to get some of it. Okay. That doesn't happen in a fixed index annuity. So there's another difference for you. Now let's talk about fixed indexed annuities, the features and benefits. This is the most commonly used product in my world, which I'm primarily in the retirement world and also in the protection world. And I work with legacy planning as well. Legacy meaning that when you die, you know, where are you going to leave your money? And these products are the best legacy planning products out there because, again, you cannot lose money on this. You see highlighted there in green is that you are 100% protected, principal protected against any market loss. So you'll never lose your principal balance. A lot of times these products, especially when used for legacy purposes, they don't even have a fee to the insurance company. There's no fee. Again, well, Randy, how do you make money? Well, you're in a contract, okay? You're in a contract and they pay me out of their general and administrative expense. That doesn't affect you at all, okay? But if you went to surrender your contract or give your contract before your term, then all those things are factored into the surrender charge that you would pay. So eventually they would get their money back. They would just get it back from you. So we don't ever put anybody in these contracts that we think are ever even have a slight chance of ever getting out of them, right? It just doesn't make sense to do that. But we do use these to protect portfolios to a certain percentage and a certain degree. If you're 50 years old, we may put 40%, 50% of your money into a fixed index annuity. If you're 60 years old or 70 years old, we may put a little more than that just to protect and make sure that you don't experience market losses with a portion of your money. And it's a really good sleep factor for you. And then at some point in your future, in your life, whenever you're ready to retire and take guaranteed income, you can turn a guaranteed income component on to these products. So there's some flexibility with these things, man. They're really nice. They're tied to an index that is run by an algorithm by very, very smart people. And you can look up the word Annexus, 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 and look at that company and the people that work there. And that's exactly who I work with them, very closely with them. So these products provide growth for you. They provide 100% protection against market loss. And if you want income, yes, you will pay a fee of about 1%, but it will also guarantee you income for the rest of you and your wife's life. I think that's very smart money. That's why we use it. So here's the facts on it. Principal protection, 100% from loss. They have anywhere from 5 to 15-year contracts or surrender schedules, okay? The fees are typically zero. I would say it's 60, 70% of the cases that we do. We use zero fee products. No income rider is needed. They can actually take money out of there in terms of a free withdrawal whenever they want, up to 10% a year. Has that liquidity feature on there. And, you know, the fees are really minimal. They're anywhere from 0 to 1.45%. So I think that's a heck of a deal. Plus, right now, they're offering very good bonuses on these products. What do you mean they're giving bonuses? Well, they want to attract your business. So oftentimes, if you have an old contract that doesn't have good structure to it, and the only way that you would know that is I would have to look at it and tell you it does or does not have good structure to it. Some of the older products are really outdated, and you need to do what we call refinance them. And this is a really good time to refinance because they're paying bonuses anywhere from 13 to 22% right now. And that means that they'll take your surrender value of your older contract, they'll put a bonus on top of that of say 15%. I'm making up a number, and that'll be your new account balance. So if you haven't made any money on your old annuities, now at least you could make up for a little bit of those losses through a bonus. So there's a lot of really, really attractive things to these fixed index annuities right now. And the pricing is primarily tied to or based on, what interest rates are doing in the economy. So that's a whole nother conversation, but these are really the fantastic strategies to implement into your. So let's talk about the facts of this. Fees can be zero, right? But there can also be a little bit longer surrender schedule. If you took a 15-year product, which I don't recommend for hardly anybody unless you're 45 years old. And I have done that before, quite honestly. There's been a few cases where I've had 45-year-olds and I they've had a lot of money, and I put a little bit of their money in this. So it protected them until they were 59 and a half, and it grew without any risk, any market risk, and it didn't cost them anything. It was 0 fee. But that's a long surrender schedule. That's 15 years. So that's a negative. But I will tell you that what we get paid on these products is less than what we would charge you if we went and took all this money and put it in the marketplace. So I often tell people, like, did your advisor ever come to you with an idea of a fixed index annuity? And if not, why not? Because it really does make sense. But I found that most of the reasons why is because what I've learned over 17 years is because they don't make as much money at it. But our interest is not about making money. Our interest is about getting you through retirement and through the rest of your life and leaving you with a legacy that you want to leave for your family. That's what we do here at Hux Capital Management. And we take this very, very seriously. So we don't look at money in any aspect other than, yes, we're going to make a living. Yes, we're going to do well, but we're always going to do the right thing because we are licensed fiduciaries. And you're always going to want to work with a licensed fiduciary. So write that down on your paper. Licensed fiduciary, only work with a licensed fiduciary. And when they're a licensed fiduciary, the best way to work with them is not at a brokerage firm, because you'll probably rarely ever get told about these fixed index annuities, but if they're independent. So working with an independent licensed fiduciary is the best way to go in this industry. So look for that. Ask advisors that you're out there seeking counsel from. Are they independent? Who do they work with? Do they work for a brokerage firm? Because if they do, it's a brokerage firm. The brokerage firms make money on brokers making fees, okay? That's why a lot of times you won't hear about this stuff, and they'll badmouth it, and they'll say it's not that good, but it is good. It's very good. So these are good products. So some important things to consider. Cap rates. Your index may do 8%, but you might only get 2%. What that means is 6% was capped. If your index made 8%, guess who gets the first 6%? You don't. You only get 2% of that. So where does the other 8%, 6% go? The other 6% goes to the insurance company. Who would want to do that? You don't want to do anything with a cap. What about spreads? So spreads, in a spread situation, your index may do 8%, but the insurance company gets the first 5% because they put a 5% spread on your account. So now you only end up with 3%. What you really want is something without a cap, without a spread, or anything written in the contract that says that they could put a cap or a spread on there. And you want to find something that has what's called a participation rate that has at least a 100% participation rate as to how the index has performed. Make sure that you clearly understand all of this up front. If you don't, you could make a very serious mistake. Caps have cost people a lot of money, and spreads have cost people a lot of money. You need to understand you don't need to be in one of those contracts. Now look at the performance of these things. Fixed index annuities, FIAs versus bonds over 122 years. Look at this chart. Over 122 years, they're not dynamic. They're not ever going to hit a home run for you, but they're just going to hit singles for you, right? Well, FIAs have outperformed bonds by 3.8 times. 3.8 times over 122 years. So this can also be a strategy where you replace your bond holdings, your bond portfolio. You replace it with some of these safe products that can never lose money due to market loss. And you put it in a fixed index annuity and just let it sit there. Let's sit there and make it 5% a year, 6% over time. It's fine. And now you have 100% protection from market loss. It's a great strategy. And they usually outperform bonds. So when you look at addressing longevity and inflation risk, a successful retirement plan will provide you the ability, for the rest of your life, and in accordance with the lifestyle that you want to live, it should provide principal that's protected. It should provide you with some payments for the rest of your life, and it should give you some growth in return over assets. And I can return on assets. I can tell you that these products are also built to help with inflation. So as your indexes, your underlying indexes are making money on some of these fixed index annuities, that can also increase the amount of income that you have as well. So let's look at an actual portfolio here. This is a 60-40 portfolio. 60% of your money being in what we call the SPY, or the SPY, which is really just the S&P 500. Okay, that just means the stock market. So you've got 60% of your money in equities, okay, in stocks. You've got 40% in bonds. They're also in the stock market. And you can see the little dot, the little blue dot there on the right. But watch what happens when we split this out and we take 40% and we protect it from market losses. And then we take 40% from the other pieces and we kind of just reduce them down 40%. We end up with 36% in actual stocks or equities in the market. And then we end up with 24% in bonds. Don't let the word AGG or SPY, don't let that confuse you. Just think stocks and bonds. And then we have 40% that is invested into annuities. Let's see how that performs over time. Okay, so if you look at this comparative risk versus return, the blue box there indicates the 60-40 portfolio. The darker colored black box there is the proposed portfolio where we took out 40% and put it into something that's safe. I want you to look at this. Since 2005, look what would have happened had you done that to your current portfolio and just taken 40% out and protected it from market loss with just a moderate growth in there of, say, 5% versus having all your money in the stock market. If you look at the green line there, that's what the S&P and the combination of the S&P and the bonds, what that 60-40 split did. And that blue line right there represents just like a current portfolio. So if you're looking at the green line, look at how that has just absolutely gotten blown away by just putting some safety and building some safety into your portfolio. And it reduces the amount of risk, of course, because now you have zero risk of loss for a portion of your portfolio. Here's an actual client that we just took on. Their portfolio allocation was where it says current portfolio allocation. That's what it was. It was all in the stock market. And this was in February 2025. We reallocated his stuff into many different sectors. But that blue piece that you see on the right was his proposed portfolio allocation, which is almost half. He's a 65, 67-year-old man, and his wife was 68. So they needed a little more protection, and they got that. They got about 45%. And then lo and behold, we go through a big correction, and they were so thankful that we protected their assets. So that's the power of what we do. But balance is the key in this. Balance is the real key because you have to have some growth. You have to have money in the markets, right? But it has to be properly managed. But then you have to have some money over on the other side that has protection with fixed index annuities or bank accounts or fixed rate annuities or cash, money market accounts. We're not discouraging that, but we also know that we want to have not only things protected, but we got to have some growth in our portfolio from people that are professionals that know how to properly manage money. So here's what an index annuity looks like over time. Pretty incredible. The blue line. And this goes back to 1999 all the way out to 2024. And if you look at the performance of the S&P 500, that's the red line. And you look at that and you look at just a simple, very simple fixed index annuity and you compare the two, the fixed index annuity outperformed the S&P 500. And that's because of the power of zero. When you can protect your portfolio from loss, it will increase your portfolio value over time. Remember the longevity risk we talked about? We've got to help you with longevity risk. you don't know how long you're going to live. We don't want you to outlive your money. So that's why we put people in these strategies. And why does this work? Why does all this work? Because as Warren Buffett says, the number one rule to being a successful investor is to make sure that you find a way to never lose money. And he says his number two rule for being a successful investor is to make sure you follow rule number one. This strategy lines up exactly with what Warren Buffett says it takes to become a successful investor. So you need to have a little mix of both. And I think it's really important that you consider that. At any moment, anytime now throughout, the end of this, I'm wrapping up this presentation here. You can definitely go to that where the calendar is. At any moment in this presentation, you can click on the box and you can schedule a time to meet with us. My calendar will pop up. Go in there and schedule a time, and we'd be glad to meet with you. These are some of the people that I had mentioned to you earlier: Robert Schiller, Roger Ibbotson, Jeremy Siegel. These are part of the Nexus team. There's a Nexus spelled out for you. That's one of the companies I work with. These are Nobel Prize winners in economics, or at least Robert Schiller is. And these other people are economists that you'll see oftentimes on CNBC or some of the business channels, Fox Business, so on and so forth. So, very, very smart people. I'm blessed to be able to work with them. And that's why, really, quite honestly, that's why they're the reasons why I have access to what less than 2% of the advisors out there have access to. They're very selective in who they work with and who speaks about their product. So we're blessed to have them. But let me share with you something I think is pretty neat, is what Shaquille O'Neal did. He said, you have to educate yourself on wealth. And a lot of people don't do that. He says his number one piece of advice is to learn what annuities are. This is Shaquille O'Neal. He's got a $400 million net worth, probably more than that by now. But his advisor, when he signed his biggest contract, he said, well, what are we going to do with the money? And the advisor said, every year, I want you to put $1 million away into an annuity. He goes, well, I don't know what an annuity is. He goes, well, let me tell you about annuities. And he just went through everything I just told you. And he goes, well, that makes sense to me, because if I lose all my money, at least I'll have some money to put a roof over my head and have food and clothing for my children and for my family. And so these annuities have a lot of power no matter what age you are. So if it's good enough for Shaq, it's good enough for a lot of people, right? Here's the math. I mentioned to you earlier, if you have an existing annuity, and if it's not like done well, or if it's older, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe even longer, it's probably not going to have the same strategies. It's not even going to be close to having the same characteristics and qualities that these annuities have now. So let's just say that your cash surrender value is $296,000, right? Well, if you got a 13% bonus, your new account balance would be $334,000. Now, your account value might say on your current existing annuity that it has $1,000 of value, but $320,000 of value on your current annuity minus what the difference between that and your $334,000 is, of course, $14,751 in addition to what you already have. That's what we call refinancing an annuity. We can refinance your annuity. We can give you a bonus. We can give you a little more money. If you want us to take a look at what you have, if you already have an annuity, maybe it's a variable annuity that's really gotten hammered lately. Maybe it's just an older fixed index annuity that just really has never paid anything. Maybe your annuity has a cap on it or a spread on it. Hey, let us take a look at it, or let somebody that knows what they're doing take a look at it. It's worth it. And here's the last couple of things I'll say to you. How does your current advisor monitor your accounts that are in the stock market? How many of you guys get a phone call every time your account hits an all-time new low? How many times do you guys get calls from your advisors or communication at all in any way, any capacity as to what your account balance is doing, other than if you go and literally log in and check on your account? And then so oftentimes we can't keep up with where we're at, right? I know, because I was a client. I sat in your shoes. Well, welcome to what we call asset lock, because we have asset lock. And there are very, very few. You could ask all your friends and neighbors. They probably don't even have access asset lock, and they don't even know what it is. But asset lock is a proprietary software system that we have access to, that it actually tells you when you hit an all-time account high. Every time you hit an account high, it will alert you. It will send you a text message that day. It will send you a text message and an email that day, that week. At the end of the week, you'll get a summary as to what your account value is doing. Okay? This is constant communication, because communication is the key between you and us, the advisor. And it's really hard for us as advisors, when we have hundreds, if not thousands of clients, to be able to monitor those accounts every day visually and then send you a message. It's virtually impossible. So we have software that does that for us and that you have access to when you work with us. So this is an outstanding product, outstanding thing to have in your portfolio, outstanding to have monitoring your account. And I hope that you'll look at that and consider that, because not only do you get notified when it goes up, but you also get notified when it goes down a certain level below its high water mark nature. So I hope it's been helpful for you. I appreciate the time that you spent today, and I really thank you for that. And I hope that this in some way enlightens you as why there's value in certain annuities and what the risk is in others. So annuities are a good thing, man. You should be talking good about annuities, not talking bad about them. And not necessarily you, but just the marketplace in general, because they're very powerful products. Protect you from market loss, provide you guaranteed income for life, and you'll get some moderate growth throughout the term of your annuities. So again, thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you or helping you in some way or another. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Hux Capital Management, we work hard to protect your wealth with proactive management and asset lock. Set your risk level, monitor your portfolio automatically, and help secure your future. Contact us today.